Tashdele to everyone. And so today we're going to start with our class. And today's class, we're going to mostly discuss the name of the text. So we'll just discuss briefly about the name of the text. And there are some words that I have written to symbolize auspiciousness for this course that we're having, so that the course that may continue for the next 4 weeks or so, so 8 sessions, would happen without much of obstruction. So the text that we're going to discuss, it's called the Heart Sutra. In Tibetan, it's Shirap Nyingpo. And in Sanskrit, it is Pragya Paramita. Uh, so the main, like we already have read it in the group, the main purpose of this course is to provide a clarification on the term. So that is the reason why we will not be discussing too much on the commentary aspect of the text. We will talk only about the terminology and the etymology of the words, and to help everyone understand what most of the words mean by themselves. And then with that, one can actually read and have a understanding, have an understanding uh, of the text on the basis of the words, and definitely also to help enrich the Dharma vocabulary for those who wish to study and learn the Dharma words. Okay, so we're going to base the lesson on the Tibetan version, the Tibetan text, and accordingly we'll go. So today we're only going to discuss the name, as I said. Okay, so so we see that this is a verse of worship. So like we have all, so for those who are joining me from the grammar class, we have already discussed this, but let me just briefly clarify the idea of verse of worship. So in the idea that we had, so the thing is that the verse of worship is something that you observe in most of the text, most of those texts, those both most of the uh, commentaries that we have, that we read. Uh, uh, we somewhat understand that most of them in Tibetan have the verse of worship. So, what is this concept of verse of worship? And the beginning of this tradition of writing the verse of worship is something that is being that has been adopted from the tradition of. It has been adopted from the Indian tradition, from the Nalanda tradition. So, in the beginning of the 7th century, uh, great the great Dharma king Songtse Gampo, from his reign, many of the Nalanda tradition was introduced in Tibet, and so through there, and after that, the King Chusong Deodzin established a university sort of place where many different scholars from different religious background would come, and they would do research, and mostly it was for the purpose of enriching the Tibetan tradition with Dharma. So throughout those times, we see that books were being published, rules were being made regarding Tibetan language, as well as the text that were going to be published. And so many of the concept, or many of the tradition that was already actively practiced in the Nalanda was adopted greatly in Tibetan tradition. So one of these tradition is the usage of the verse of worship. So the verse of worship has two main purposes. So one purpose, as I said, is to uh, is to be able to avoid any obstruction, any unfortunate events while while stating. So while writing or while composing a commentary. So this the Tibetan version was a translation of the Sanskrit version of the Heart Sutra. So therefore, the tradition was still carried on. So therefore, we see that there is the usage of the verse of worship. So the verse of worship, the second purpose of the verse of worship is mostly to establish in which basket of teaching each of the texts belong to. So this is something that was done throughout the Nalanda tradition and was adopted also in Tibetan tradition. So two purposes. So this is a very brief explanation on that. So we see that the verse of worship here is so the verse of worship is dedicated towards the three gem, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. So we have it says so the verse of worship is Lama Thamji Kembala Chatelo. So Lama, which means the word La, very interesting word actually. It was very prominent during the second translation. Sorry, the second translation or the second language revolution, uh, and it was a word that was very much in use in those times. Uh, these days, we mostly use the word Toa. So it's a word Toa, which we use these days a lot. Okay, so I hope you can see the screen. So the word that is used these days instead of the word la is to. So this is something that we use these days, which means high or higher, or so depending on which degree of the word we're using. So it could mean high, higher, or highest. But during the second translation or during the second language revolution, uh, the word that was more prominent, the word that was more in use was the word la. So it was, and from there we see the word lama, meaning the one who is the highest. So that which is the highest, that which doesn't have anything which is higher than that. So lama. So here we see that we're going back to this file. Okay. So here we see that we're using this, the same word has been used here, lama, which is influenced by the word la, which means the highest. And tamje means everything, entirety. Tamje Kempa means the omniscient one, the one who knows everything. And then we have the word la, which is a particle, which as we know that as we must understand that these kind of terms like la, which are particles, they have a certain rule. And according to the structure of the Tibetan language, we usually don't translate them as a singular unit. They have a translation in accordance to the context. So here, la is towards or to in this context, and chaktil means to pay homage or to prostrate. So it means I prostrate to you, the highest omniscient. So it could be the Guru. So the omniscient Guru. So here we see that the same has been written here. So Chatsel, Namo, which means to pay homage or to prostrate. Guru, which is the Lama, the highest. Sarvagaya. Sarva means entirety, or Sarvagya, which means kin, also understood as Gya or Jnana, means the consciousness or the knowledge. Sarvagya means something or a consciousness which possess the entirety of knowledge, the entire knowledge, the omniscient being. And Ya is to say towards, like the La here. So in English, it's I prostrate to you, I prostrate to the omniscient Guru. So this is the verse of worship here, particular verse of worship used here. Okay, so now here I have written three verse. One in which it is about taking refuge in Buddha. So, like I said, the reason why I have written these three verses is to symbolize or to signify an auspiciousness throughout the entire course. So I will be going very briefly on these. No need to explain elaborate. No need to elaborate the explanation. So we'll just go very briefly through this. So the first verse is taking refuge in Buddha. 강칠 출남 대다 똥바니 케기 디니 양다 송규와 샘제 머리 균레 타트웨 덤바 시럽 첸라 겹수치. So there is a direct translation to this. It says, for what reason all phenomena themselves are emptiness, this is most excellently said by you, the teacher who liberates all sentient beings from their ignorance. I take refuge in you, O great wisdom. So then the next two verse, which is taking refuge in the Great Mother. Konsange chöki shimani semri jinkungi tsugema yum shira paru chimbala tu tamji nido chatalo. One who is the foundation of all the Buddha's teaching, crown jewel of those possessing the excellent mind. In all the three times I prostrate to the Mother Pragyaparamita. And finally, the final verse, ne dine parul gatete konkodamai yangdasun om shridaya gyane vesercho yum sarva gyanar kyapsuche. Gautama, who have most excellently spoken, the means to transcend from here to beyond, the excellent transcendent light of essential wisdom. I take refuge in you, O omniscient Mother. So these three verses, which I have written, to pay praise and homage to both Buddha and the Mother Pragyaparamita, the Great Mother Pragyaparamita. Okay, now going to the actual lesson. So understanding the name of the text. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to discuss a little bit on the name of the text, and from the next class we're going with the actual text, in which we'll divide the entire text in 7 classes, and we'll hope that we can finish the entire text in 7 classes or 7 sessions. But we'll try our best to finish the text. Okay, so here we have the here we have one more. So with the actual, before the name, we have the verse of worship of the text. It states, so we see that this verse, so this particular line as a verse of worship, So some of the words. So the first word is Papa. Uh, in Sanskrit, it's Arya. English, it means noble one or the exalted being. So here we must understand that the word noble has to do more with the merits. And when we talk about the merits, it is those who have achieved a transcendent view, a view that is beyond the uh, normal worldly person. It's understood as the Arya. It's the meaning of the word here. So, Papa, uh, Arya. So, this is the meaning of the word. Also used very commonly in Tibetan language to also refer to uh, people who have achieved a great proficiency in certain type of task. It may be a task which relates to one's practice. It may be task which may not relate to one's practice, but it is also used to understand as someone being very proficient in something that they do. Ketopapa. So the word is ketopapa. So uh, the word is ketopapa. Let me change the screen because these are the additional things that I'm writing. So therefore, I'm trying to use a white screen instead of the chat tool because it is more clear here. So ketopapa. So the word ketopapa can also be understood as someone who has attained a great proficiency in their practice, or someone who is distinguished in what they're doing. So Keto Papa. Papa, the direct translation is Arya. Uh, so like we discussed, it means someone who has a transcendental view, a view that is transcendent from the normal mundane view. So like a very normal worldly view towards the phenomena. So Papa. And normally, when we talk about Papa, like uh, in uh, in the uh, Mahayana tradition, we talk about someone who has attained the first ground of seeing. So anyone who has attained the first ground of seeing is considered to be Papa. But that we're talking about the person. It the very word Papa can also be used with certain type of teaching, like of the Four Noble Truth and the Eightfold Practice, Pape like it. So it can also be used with practice. The particular word also be used with person. So someone who has attained the first ground of seeing, or the arahats. Uh, so this is the word, and then sometimes also used in a more common dialect or more common way of speaking, in which we use the word ketopapa, which means someone that is proficient in something that they're doing, very distinguished in their own field. So ketopapa, someone who has attained a certain type of mastery or great proficiency in what they do. So that word is papa. Here the word is Arya, papa. So let me go and go back here. So Arya. Uh, so the pronunciation might not be very perfect. So therefore, please refer somewhere for the pronunciation. So Arya, which means noble or exalted being at this moment. But here, uh, Papa Kunjosum, in the context of Kunjosum Papa, it is it talks about something that is uh, of a very great value or quality. So Papa, instead of referring to a being, it talks about a great quality. Like I said, for certain teaching, we also use the word Papa, Papa Dem, Pape Dembashi, the Four Noble Truth. Talks about it talks more about the quality rather than the quality of a teaching rather than a person. So here the context is also on that context. So the word Papa refers to the Kunjosum. Okay, so the second word, Kun. Kun means Durlaba, which means Durlab or Dulaba, which means rare, something that is very rare, something that is very rare and it's very difficult to achieve. So the same definition could be found, like a more elaborate definition could be found in the 25th chapter of uh, Lalitava Sutra, where in the 25th chapter there is a little bit more elaborate explanation on the word kunchok. So there you can see the why it is rare, how it is rare. So during the turning of wheels. So in that chapter, please refer to that to understand more on the understanding of why these three are considered to be rare, durlab or dullaba. Then chok means uttam or uttama, something that is superior, something that doesn't have anything which is greater than this. Very, very almost close to the word la. Most chok is superior, most excellent. So uttam, so something that is rare and something that is the most superior, most excellent. Sum, the word means three, which means tree. Three. So three. So there are three in numbers. The three jewels, which are rare and superior. Shoutem, namo, to prostrate, and ya, which is which means la, means two. So this is the meaning of this is the meaning of this verse of worship. Okay, so now Kyavaketu, meaning in Indian. So this here I will be elaborating a little bit on this. So this is also a tradition that was started during the translation that took place during the seventh the king Songzhen Gambo, the first of the three Dharma king, during which this tradition was adopted, where most of the translations and the commentaries made on the treaties by the scholars of Nalanda scholars, as well as translation of the sutras of Buddha. Whenever one does that, there was this tradition where they would make a point, where they would include something. It could be anything. It could be the verse of worship. It could be just a small word. Doesn't matter. They would make a point of including something written in the Sanskrit language. And this was done for two main purposes. The first reason was in order to pay homage to the language in which the sutras of Buddha was written down. All of the teachings of Buddha was written down. And in a way, also paying homage to Buddha by praising the language or the writing, the lipi, we call it the lipi, the writing system, in which the entirety of Buddha's 84,000 bodies of teaching was written down. And so This is the first purpose. The second purpose is to actually, because during the times of Nalanda, during the times where Nalanda was still flourishing and it was very active, people would publish. It was very difficult to publish something, and the reason why it was very difficult to publish something, because like there were like these people. It would whatever was to be published would be distributed to all those great scholars there, and then they would read it, and then it was somewhat like getting an approval from them in a way. So in those times, the scholars there in Nalanda, some of them who were very intellectual. So if some of the things that were published, like a sort of published, like were distributed, like a draft was given, and if they thought that it wasn't something that was in par with the standard of Nalanda, they would just some would just throw away that book. Some would burn it. Some would tie it to the tails of a dog. So it was like a way to say that uh, whatever you have written has no value because it is not on par. Like either the analysis or the articles were not correct, or they do not have substantial value to be published. And so the Tibetan authors, they would make a point to include something written in Sanskrit so that they could, in a way, establish the fact that whatever they have written is somewhat on par with the books that were published during the time of Nalanda. So to give their commentaries a certain type of value. So this was the reason why this was done. So we see that even in this in this translation, we see that the name of the text is written in Sanskrit. The same is done in many of other texts. One of the more common one would be a grammar text by Timi Sambuja called the 30, in which he begins with uh, the name of the text written in Sanskrit, and then some of the commentary. One of the more famous commentary, the Tree of Excellent Speech, in which the author includes the verse of worship in Sanskrit. So similarly, we see here that the Indian language is included. So Gyagar Ketu, which means in Indian language, it is Bhagwati. I'll read it. I'll try to read it as close as possible. So Bhagwati Pragya Paramita Shridaya. So the actual so this is a rule that has to do with some of these words. Like you see that here we have words that are stacked on each other. So the rules are dictated by the structure of the Sanskrit language. So it is pragya. So sometimes when the rules are not understood, people sometimes pronounce this as tanza. So this is the way we read in Tibetan. So instead of pragya, it becomes Tanzania. But so this is Bhagwati Pragya Paramita Shridaya Bhagyetu. So in Tibetan, Chomdende Mashirab Chomdende Mashirab Kiparutu Chimbe Ningbo. So here I have already written these words down, and then certain type of clarification plus some extra information regarding some of the words. So Pambo Chiko, Pambo means volume, Chik means first, so first volume, volume 1. So the first word is Chamdendema, which in Sanskrit, sorry, so I think I haven't written it correctly here. It is Bhagwati. So Bhagwati, which means the victor, normally translated as Bhagwat instead of Bhagwati. Normally used as Bhagwat. So Bhagwat and Bhagwati is the differences of only the in the feminine and masculinity. So the male and female. So this is Trilinga, Linga, which means the gender of the word, and Stri means the feminine. So it's the feminine word because of the E, addition of the E. If it was the masculine, would be Bhagwat or Bhagwata with the A, more A and the A sound. But since it has E, it becomes Bhagwati, which is the victor, but this is the female. And the masculine one, instead of Chamden Dema, it is Chamden De, which is Bhagwat. So this is the Purlinga. Pur, which means the masculine, Linga, which is the gender. So Purlinga. So here I have in the second page, I have actually written the definition of this word, Chomden De or Chomden Tema, which is the feminine, from the Tibetan, from the Great Tibetan Chinese Dictionary. It says, which is the dictionary, Du Shi Chomxing, Legbe Yun Den Fu Da Denba. So, Victor, from the Chemo, the name of the dictionary, it states, one who have triumphed over the four Maras and possess 6 excellent qualities. So, the 4 Maras and the 6 excellent qualities will not elaborate on those things. If you have questions regarding them, please make sure to ask me, and I will clarify on those. Other than that, this is not the subject of our lesson. So therefore, very straight explanation. So one who is considered a victor, what does that someone have achieved victory upon? They have achieved victory upon the 4 Maras, and because they have achieved a victory over the 4 Maras, they possess the 6 excellent qualities. So that is the meaning of the word Chomdente. Chom means to subdue, to overcome, to conquer. Den means someone that has already possessed that state of conquering, subduing. Thus, someone who is a victor, someone who has attained victory over something. And here we see that the De means who have already gone through that stage of being the victor. But what kind of victory are we talking? We're talking about victory over the 4 Maras of the samsara. And thus, by being victorious, one possesses the 6 qualities which define one, which is the evidence of one being the victor. So the word Chomdente. Chom meaning someone that conquered, someone that overcame. Chomden means someone that possesses the state. And De means someone who has already possessed that state now, who has gone beyond that state of possessing, meaning someone that has already possessed those that stage in which one has overcome, one has triumphed, one has achieved victory. So Chomdente. And then when you add Ma, it becomes the feminine, Chomdente Ma. Therefore, it becomes the great mother because of Ma. Because the quality of this particular discourse is such that it helps overcoming those 4 Maras, and through which possessing the 6 excellent qualities. So this is the meaning of the word Chomden De. And here we have the word Chomden De Ma, which is the feminine, and which also helps us interpreting this particular text as the great mother, Yumchemo, the great mother. So therefore, Chomden Dema Bhagwati, uh, meaning the victor. Strilinga, feminine word. The masculine is Chomdente, Bhagwat. Okay, so this is the first word. Here we have Chomdentema, which refers to the great mother who who has achieved the state, who have achieved the state of being victorious, who have achieved the state of being triumphant over the four Maras, and thus possessing the six excellent qualities. So Chamdentema. Shirap, shirap. So first the word she, shatumba she is a she, which could be understood as consciousness or knowledge. So she is jnana or gya. So gya means consciousness or knowledge. And then when we add this other word that is pra, it becomes pragya, which means the most highest, the most excellent of those knowledge, meaning the wisdom. We talk about the wisdom. So pragya, highest of the consciousness, highest of the wisdom, pragya. Shirap, she, which means gya, consciousness, or shepa, which means consciousness, shecha, which means knowledge, and rab means the most excellent, most highest. So the highest of all knowledge, which is the pragya, wisdom, highest of all consciousness, which is the pragya, wisdom. So that is the meaning of the word shirap, pragya. Then the word paramita, parutuchimpe, paramita, which can be understood in two ways. It could also be understood as transcendental, transcendent or transcendental, or it could be understood as perfection. So this argument we bring here more clear. So paramita has two etymologies. One being of the when you read the entire word together, paramita, where we understand the word of the meaning of the word param, which means the highest, the most perfect, through which we understand the meaning of the word perfect. Of the 10 perfections. So paramita, when we read it as paramita, we understand the meaning with the word parama or parama, which means the highest. So paramita means the perfection or the highest. So the highest wisdom or the wisdom of the perfection of wisdom, which gives us the, and this is not only greatly it is also very greatly discussed in the illuminating the intent by Lama Tsongkhapa. So if you would like to check this, you can check this. It's in the 6th chapter of the 6th ground. There you can see where Lama Tsongkhapa does a small analysis on this, where he talks about the two etymology of paramita and paramita, where you have para and mita, which is different. Like you just separate two of these, or paramita or paramita. It does a small analysis on that. So if you're interested, you can check that out. It's the name of the text is Illuminating the Intent. It's a commentary on Madhyamika Avatara by Chandrakirti. So there you can check this. Okay, so The second etymology is when you read it as paramita. So when you separate the two words, para means to go beyond, and mita, which means that which has arrived, and ita, which means which has gone beyond. And here we have the understanding of the translation, which is done in Tibetan. We call it parul tuchimpa. So we say parul tuchimpa. So parul tuchimpa. So parul tu. Let me write this. One might think. If those of you who have already studied Tibetan grammar, uh, there could be a understanding, like you may think like, oh, why do we use this particular particle do not follow this word, this particular letter? So why do we have this? And this has to do with more with the first translation. It has to do with the first translation, during which there was like more of a usage of the uh, post suffix letters. So let me just write it. It's much more better if I write it. It's much clearer. So let me just go here. So please look at the screen where I will. So normally it should be like this. You see, it should be parul tu, because the particular suffix we have in Tibetan. So it's a rule which is dictated by the grammatical system. So in the 30 particular, it's talked in the 30. But the reason why this has to is because it's parul tu. So this actually comes from the first translation, where there was like very great usage of the post suffix. Post suffix meaning this is the suffix, post suffix because it comes again after the suffix. So post suffix letter, and because it has this particular letter, we can use this. So the thing is that even though it's written like this, one must understand that it actually is this. And it has to do with, like, there were changes of the rules, like these kind of usage become very less in the more contemporary system of writing, which started the most recent one started in the late 19th century. But the third language revolution happened like almost 1300 years ago. So yes, almost 1300 years ago, almost. So therefore, we see that in the more contemporary context of Tibetan system, we don't use these. But still, since this was translated very early, so we still use parul tu and not parul tu. And this is like an clarification. This is a clarification. And those who have an experience with learning Tibetan grammar, for you, this is a clarification. Why this is in this way. And for those who haven't, this is also a clarification. So I hope it is a clarification. So therefore, parul tu instead of parul tu, because of this particular word. So we see that in this translation, now we're talking, let me get back to the translation. We see that here in Tibetan, it says parul tu chimpa, meaning to go beyond, right? It's to go beyond. And the very concept of saying go beyond comes from the understanding of this very understanding of the second etymology, which is paramita. Definitely, the translation, there are two translations in Tibetan also. One is parchi, which talks about the perfection. But then there's parul tuchin, which talks about going beyond, to go beyond. So therefore, parul tuchin and parchi, two different words and different translation based on these two etymologies. One where we read the word paramita as one, and then we have the understanding that it talks about para or parama, the highest. In or perfection, which in Tibetan is parji. But then the other etymology, which is paramita or paraita, which is when we say paramita, it has to do with that which has arrived beyond. In Tibetan, it's Teparutuchimpa. Whereas if we say paraita, it becomes Diparutuchimpa, to go beyond this. One is that which has arrived beyond, and the other is that which is beyond this. So paramita, paraita. And then a small analysis is done on this also by Lama Tsongkhapa in the text illuminating the intent, where the sixth ground, the sixth chapter, in which he talks about this particular usage, where instead of what he does is that he states that there is a usage in which you can put more emphasis in the word ita rather than the mita. So paraita instead of paramita, where it talks about that which goes beyond this, diparutuchimpa. And then if we understand it as paramita, it is teparutuchimpa, that which has arrived from there to this beyond. And then when we talk about beyond, I'm not going to elaborate much, but those who are interested, please check the text by Asanga Vasubandhu in his text of Abhidharma, and also the text of Chandakriti, which is Madhyamika Avatara. In the first chapter, you will see the explanation of what is the beyond that they are talking here. What is para? Where Chandrakirti actually used the analogy of beyond a shore. The shore, he takes an analogy of a shore and to go beyond that. So there, please check it if you're interested in that text. Okay, so this is the clarification on the word paramita. Parultuchimpa. Parultuchimpa, paramita. When we say paramita, that is perfection, the 10th perfection, the 6th perfection. Then when we say paramita or paraita, it talks about transcendental, transcendent. Okay, now the word here now, Ningpo. Ningpo means Hridaya. Hridaya, in Hindi it's Hriday, so Hridaya, which means heart. So mostly talking about the essence of the teaching. And then in some translation we say we see the word sutram, which means sutram means discourse. In Tibetan it's do, which is the discourse, the direct discourse by Buddha. So every discourse that was given by Buddha is known as do. So this is the discourse that was this is the discourse that was given by Buddha during the turning of the second wheel at the Rajgiri. Logela. Let's look at it. So we see that the this particular sutra was a discourse that was given by Buddha at the Rajgiri, the vultures speak. So we will dive into that from the next class, in which we will try to finish the entire text. I think it is possible because we're just going to discuss the terms. We're not going to dive deep in the explanation of the meanings. For those, I have already given you the reference here, along with some of the things that I thought every one of you might feel interested in. So if you're interested, make sure you visit those texts where you can find the answers to the explanation, and then you can also listen to commentaries by other great scholars who have done commentary on this. So this is the meaning of the. So here we have discussed the meaning of the text, which is Pragya Paramita Hridaya Sutram. Pragya. So or we can say Bhagavati Pragya Paramitaya Hridaya Sutram. Bhagavati, as we discussed, means the victor, someone who has attained victor, who has already attained the state of a victor, victory on the four maras. And the evidence of that victory is the attainment of the six excellent quality. So Bhagavati, the feminine, this is Arya. Sorry, so I haven't. I have made a little mistake here. So the correct PDF will be sent to the group. So it's Bhagavati, the feminine Strilinga. The masculine Purling is Bhagavat, Chamdente. She Jnana, which also means the consciousness, or it also means the knowledge. So pra, which means the most, the highest knowledge, the highest consciousness, which is of the wisdom pertaining emptiness. So pragya, wisdom. Paramita, we have discussed. Also, if we read it as paramita, it means perfection, the 10 perfections, the 6 perfections. And if we read it as paramita, it means that which has arrived beyond, or paraita, which means that which goes beyond, and when we talk about beyond, the explanation of this could be found by the text of Asanga, Vasubandhu, Chandrakirti, and also Chandrakirti's text, especially Chandrakirti's text of Madhyamika Avatara, first chapter. And then the word Hridaya, Hriday or Hridaya in Sanskrit, which means heart, Ningpo, or the essence. And Do, which means Sutram, since this is a direct discourse by Buddha, so it's a sutra, so Sutram. Okay, so this is the explanation of the name. This is the explanation of the name of the sutra. And this is the first lesson that we had on the Dharma vocabulary. Lasso. So, okay, so this is the lesson for today. And I hope that this was beneficial to every one of you. Now, if someone has questions regarding today's lesson, you may ask me. Okay, so
I have a short question.
Yes, please.
My question is about meaning of rule.
Yes.
Can you give some short explanation?
Okay.
What is this rule in Tibetan?
So rul in this particular context means to reside. Rul. Pa means the other side, and rul means to reside or to be at. So in this very particular context, it means to reside or to be at the other side or to be at beyond. Rul. So I hope this clarifies the meaning. Okay, so all the words in the Heart Sutra translated according to the rules of the third language revolution of because it depends on different commentaries. Like if you, most of the commentaries are already almost 1,000 years old. So therefore, they are strongly influenced, like more than 1,000 years of 1,000. Like most of the translation was done during this thing of the 7th century, and at those times, they were actually available more there. At those times, like those great translators that were brought to Tibet from India uh, and other nations. So they translated these texts. Uh, so therefore, in those times, the influence, it depends on what type of influence that was in those times. So therefore, and the other reason why we still keep it as Parilt is, like we already said, like we already understand that when we say Parilt, it sometimes also can be understood as giving an instruction, like it states that go beyond this. So we know that the when we have the usage of the post suffix letter ta, the text, sorry, the very verb, if it used as a verb, it becomes imperative, more like command, but not like as a command to do this. It's more like an instruction that you should do this. So parilt. So therefore, that's the reason why it's still kept here. But yes, most of the commentaries were during those times. So no one changed the commentaries, so they're still there. What happened is that there were like the very text, like the understanding that there is this post suffix letter is there. So instead of writing that post suffix letter, we just made it parul instead of parult. So yes. Any more questions? Does anyone have more questions regarding today's lesson? So so before we call it the class today, so we will be providing the recording in the discussion group. The discussion group, we will be providing this recording of today's class, as well as all of the files that were written on that white screen. Everything that was written on that white screen will also be provided. And yes, so the correction will be done regarding the file for today, where there was this small mistake regarding the Sanskrit word of Bhagavati. Instead of that, instead of writing Bhagavati, I have kept the Arya. So there I will have to change it to Bhagavati. Other than that, I think everything is correct on the file. So please make sure that you revise. Yes.
Tenzila, I have a small question. So in the beginning, understanding the name of the text,
Mhm.
so there is this word la naro lo in the end.
Mm.
Yeah, so that la naro lo and the la, which is like ya. So is it similar? Because in the table, it is written only la, not la naro.
Yes. Uh, okay. So the lanaro is the recompound particle in Tibetan grammatical system, and this is something that normally doesn't get translated. So you
Mhm.
don't translate it, and but it has a, so this thing we will be able to understand this thing when we reach that part where uh, the Avalokiteshvara and Shariputra are having discussion, and Avalokiteshvara talks about form being emptiness and emptiness being form. So in that particular four line, that shlok or the verse, we will understand the usage of we will understand the importance or significance of the this recompound particle in that particular portion, because it doesn't get translated. So many a times, what happens is that this is something that I have had experience while teaching grammar. People ask me, this never gets translated. So what's the purpose? Why do we even have this? And then it's one of the function of the recompound particle is to show that a certain narration has ended to this particular point. And then they tell me, but we already have punctuations in Tibetan, so why do we have this? And then after understanding the usage of the recompound particle, we understand that there is another usage which is not uh, very apparent, and the usage has to do with the first grammatical case, which talks about the individuality of a particular phenomena. So it is something that is a quality of that recompound particle, where what it does is that whichever statement it is attached with, it actually isolates the statement as an entire narration with uh, with the with the quality of being independent of anything that comes after that. But this is something that is not it cannot be translated. So it's a nature of that particle. It's nothing that can be translated. So therefore, lo is not ya. Ya is just la, which is two. So similarly, we say, like, let me say this, when we have the verse of worship for the tree of excellent speech, we say Namo Guru Manju Kosha Ya. So it say I prostrate or I pay homage to Manjushri. So Guru Manjushri. So Ya is like two or la. But la becomes two only in this context. It is not always two. So this is something that we must also understand. These particular particle, they're very notorious in that way, you know. And what is the thing that most of the people does incorrectly is that they assign a single meaning to that particle, and then it doesn't make sense in many contexts. So it changes with context. But in this particular context, la is ya, but lo is not translated at all.
Okay. तुझे छे.
Hello. Okay, so therefore, like I was saying, uh, make sure that you check the recordings. Make sure that you check the recordings and so the homework depends entirely on every one of you. If you would like to do homework, it would be wonderful if you could use those words and write something with that. And then you can always send it to me, or you can send it in the group and I can check those sentences and then send my feedback. For example, I could, yes, memorization. It would be wonderful if you could memorize the Heart Sutra. I mean, that would be the most wonderful thing. You can memorize the Heart Sutra if you could. That would be very wonderful. So therefore, please make sure that you. When is the next class? So let me check the schedule. I think the schedule is already written in the group. So it's Mondays, and let me check. I'm very sorry. I have to check with the schedule. So it states that Sunday. Okay, so one class is on Sunday. Really? Okay, one class is on Sunday and one class is on. Okay, so one class is on Sunday, one class is on Wednesday, and yes, so this is the schedule. 7 p.m. IST. So Lasso. Okay, so that will be the same time every time. It's 7. So it's 7. Whatever course that you will be joining with us, be it this Dharma vocabulary class, or be it the grammar class, or be it the intermediate conversation class, or sometimes we also have, like, in between, we'll have classes that have to do with poetry writing and anything, whichever you would like to join, or sometimes also on the history. If you enjoy history, we'll have history in which we will extensively discuss on the history of Tibet. Those classes, every one of those classes, 7 p.m. IST. that would be the timing for this course. So thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much, and I hope that this course was this class was beneficial, and I will see every one of you on grammar classes. You can join the grammar class through the link. So link could be sent if you want. So you can join the link. So those who are interested in grammar class, we will have 2 grammar class each week. So Lasso, welcome. And so now I will conclude the class. Thank you very much for joining in, and I will see every one of you on Sunday. And before we end this class, I had written this particularly for this very reason. So let me recite this one line of Pragya Paramita, praise to Pragya Paramita. So Masam Jume Shira Paruchin, Maki Mika Namke Woni, Suso Dangri Ishi Chuyuwa, Tusum Kyawe Yumla Chatselu. Sarva Mangalam, and thank you everyone for joining in, and I will see you on Sunday. Thank you very much. And Tashi Dele to everyone.